Hey guys, welcome to Up the Coast with Alex and Britt. And we are officially 3 weeks into the 2026 softball season, and things are really starting to heat up. Britt, what do you think about where we are?
I don't know. No, we got some kind of idea, but after 3 weeks, I think even nationally, outside the top four, it's kind of anybody's game. And it's a lot of fun because it's the old cliche, anybody can beat anybody on any given day. It's really kind of happening this year.
Yeah.
I mean, Tennessee is for sure the best team in the country right now, but everybody else, it's a battle and it's really fun. And it goes back to parity that we saw really take shape a few years ago. And we're in week 3, and I still don't think we have a firm grasp on like people separating themselves from the rest of the pack.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I feel like there's things that teams are doing well one week, and then next week they kind of are struggling on that same concept or skill. And then that's across the board, though. But yeah, I mean, Tennessee is one of the best in the country right now in all facets of their game. And obviously they're led by a really strong pitching staff. But yeah, the rest is still to be determined. So it'll be interesting the next couple of weeks.
The big thing after this weekend, though, was Mary Nutter.
Yep.
It's been around for a long time, long enough for me to have played in it. You played in it too, right?
Yes, I did.
How was your experience as a player at Mary Nutter?
I know that it was always one of the tournaments that I most looked forward to just because that was kind of the event at the time that had all the best teams. And, you know, all of us East Coast teams were traveling over there. The West Coast teams were there. And it was that great, like, pre-conference time to just, like, beat each other up a little bit. It was always a little chippy as well.
Yes.
Obviously now, though, with the Clearwater tournament in play, you have kind of it split. Sometimes your East Coast teams are going out to Mary Nutter to play. Sometimes they're not. Depends. But Clearwater is almost like that additional now that really closely mimics, in my opinion, Mary Nutter.
Yeah, I think the one thing that Clearwater has, being backed by ESPN, being able to have the games on the app and on TV, really sets them apart. I didn't enjoy having to pay $40 this week for my 1 week of Flow Sports, but I appreciate being able to watch it. But I feel like they should have a discount for like a week.
Agree.
Anyway, no,
You're better than me, though. I didn't even pay for the subscription. I was like a Twitter or X troll this weekend, just like looking at everything.
Yeah, I probably should have done that to protect my wallet. But I remember as a player, though, that it was a lot of fun just being around those teams and then like having the time with your team outside of there. I remember one time we had like an early morning game and had the rest of the day off, and me and my shortstop went and got a couples massage at the hotel and things like that. So it was a lot of fun. And I've been able to go probably 3 or 4 times as a fan now. And the environment on that side of the thing is a lot of fun. I mean, just a lot of people, diehard softball people that know the game, know what's going on, and a bunch of kids that get to come out and see their favorite players, which is awesome. The food's awesome.
Yeah.
The bar in the middle of all the fields, if you can get a seat there and grab a drink, watch the games from there. The one thing I didn't like was the parking issue. I think the last time I was there, Lincoln was like 6 weeks old. So having to park a mile away with a 6-week-old wasn't fun. But no, it was great. And there was a lot of good games. We had a couple ACC teams out there that we'll dive into. But yeah, nice job again, Mary Nutter.
Yeah. I do think like field quality, though, there is kind of similar to Clearwater and what they've experienced or what people have said, you know, is the experience there. It is very jam-packed. Sometimes field quality is iffy. The time change, I remember that was like, obviously that's unavoidable, but that was tough because I remember one time we played like an 8 or 9 p.m. game and I was like, I am tired, right? And that's what these teams now go through all the time with the conference games even and the time change there. But yeah, I do agree. The micheladas at Mary Nutter as a fan, obviously not as a player, but they were elite. I am sure about that one. So yeah, but they were elite. So
I don't think you have a bad michelada, but you can have levels of elite. All right.
Yes. Never met a michelada I didn't like.
Let's dive into Stanford first. Talk about the kind of a disaster over there, not just, I wouldn't say on the field disaster, but that tournament as a whole had so much hype around it, and they still didn't have the permitting issues figured out, so they had to go the first 2 days play at West Valley or something like that. The game against Arizona had to get rescheduled because that field didn't have lights, and then the Texas-Santa Clara game was at Santa Clara, but closed to the public. I don't know why. Maybe it's a staffing issue, but I did see a report from the SF Gate that the issue with the permitting has to do with the lighting. I guess they don't have the panels in the right spot or whatnot, so they had to move their games up, which I look back now and understand why they had to move the games up when they got back into the stadium. It's because they weren't allowed to use their lights. So
Yeah.
that was such a big tournament that I had to deal with that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, some good teams there. Obviously, Arizona was there, Texas was there, trying to get some good competition in, but those like adversity factors really suck. And unfortunately, like out of a lot of people's control, at least on the softball side, right? So just kind of rolling with the punches, really trying to figure that stuff out. They've had so much investment into the stadium for them not to be able to get games there, have fans on site. Like that's a big factor just in overall team funding and success. But they did walk away with a couple of wins on the weekend. They did lose a few games as well, which maybe we feel like they shouldn't have on paper. Like you shouldn't be losing to Boise State, but hey, it happens right now. But really needing to tighten a few things up. So
yeah, I think I'm still all in on Stanford. Okay.
yeah.
I think right now, I think they're, in my opinion, the top team in the ACC. And we'll get into why not Florida State and other teams like that later on. I looked, losing to Boise State, losing to Arizona, winning those two games would really make some believers across the country. But both those games, pitchers had no hitters going into the sixth inning. They lost to Arizona, and Arizona only had one hit. It was a 4-1 game and one hit. And I looked at, they gave up the 3-run home run to Arizona, 1-2 count. They gave up a 3-run home run to Boise State, 2 count. So to me, those are mistakes, and that's one mistake they made. And I feel like you can't beat yourself up when you lose to a team that had one hit. I feel like those are a lot of things that are controllables, not a talent or skill type of thing that, hey, they're just better than us. No, I think they beat themselves in that. And then even in the Texas game, I was surprised to see Kraus, the freshman, getting the start there. She had a rocky first inning. And then Zoe Prostriko, I keep calling her Prostriko because she throws strikes. But Zoe Prostriko came in relief in the middle of the second inning, hit by pitch, and then gave up a 3-run home run to Katie Stewart. And that was kind of it. They had a late inning rally there against the defending national champion. So I think Stanford's a lot better than what their record shows. Those 2 pitches and pitchers counts that they needed to have back. But what do you think?
No, I agree. I think that sometimes it just happens, right? You're going to make one mistake on the side of either side, really. And as a hitter, you miss pitches all the time. And as a pitcher, though, you pay. And I think the pay is a little bit more damaging. It can change a game a lot more, right? Because we know as hitters, like that's what we're waiting for. We're waiting for the one mistake. And we just hope that whoever's at bat, like, doesn't miss that chance. I do think in their loss against Boise State, though, like you look at the pitching and it wasn't one pitch. It was a lot of pitches. They walked 8 batters, and it's hard to win a game when you walk that many people. Like we talk all the time. I wish I had like an actual statistic, and I will try to find one. But when I'm calling games, like the amount of times those runs score, whether they're leadoff people on base in general, however they get on, or just the free passes, the walks, the hit by pitches, the errors, the likelihood and, statistic behind those runs ultimately coming around are pretty astronomical. So tough break.
Even with the 8 walks, though, Alyssa Houston had 11 strikeouts through 6 innings. So
right,
I mean,
it's crazy.
They have the ability to be really good, and the offense I felt like was kind of lacking this weekend too. But in their game against Arizona, they left 8 people on base. In the Boise State game, they left 10 people on base. So their opportunities were there. They just couldn't come through this weekend. And I think they're going to get better. And I'm not out on Stanford. I know a lot of people are. Even somebody that lives in my house isn't convinced that Stanford's as good as I say they are. But I'm still in on Stanford.
Okay. Deal.
What about your Dukies? You've been high on them this year.
I've been really high on Duke. I think Duke has been a lot of fun to watch. They had a rough few games in Mary Netter, but they were playing some really hard competition. So they were one of the teams out in California this week. Like Coach Young has not been shy about how difficult she made their schedule. Quick turnarounds. Like they've got really no time to kind of sit and work on maybe some of the areas that they could get a little bit better at. But I think pitching is still going to be a big part of the question for Duke. And their hitters are hitting, and some of them are hitting extremely well. But It's the question of pitching. How deep are we in pitching? How good can Cassidy Curd be consistently? Then you start again talking about the free passes, just trying to limit pitch counts, attacking hitters, and not giving up that big pitch over the middle of the plate if we are behind and counts. And so I think that's what they've really got to figure out. They run the bases aggressively. They field, their defense is great, and their hitters are elite. And so I think right now the question is the battery.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we came into the season with that same question, and we're still kind of sitting there. So Duke went 2-4 out in Mary Nutter, won games against Hawaii and Elon, dropped games Texas A&M, who they beat earlier, Oklahoma, UCLA, and Oregon. And I just want to bring up the fact that they still haven't played at home yet. I know a lot of northern teams do that, so it's not an excuse, but their travel. They went down to Florida first week, came home, went back to Florida, came home, went out to Mary Nutter in California, and they're playing 5-6 games in a week. And I think a fatigue issue could certainly be there with the showing we kind of saw this weekend. I mean, that's a lot of games. That's a lot of travel. And it's against top competition. 9 of the 16 games they've played have been against ranked opponents. 5 of those 9 were ranked in the top 10. So I think the double headers really expose your pitching staff. I think 5 games in a weekend really expose your pitching staff. And it's been hard on them just to compete at a high level against strong competition with that kind of schedule and that kind of travel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think once we kind of conference starting with some teams this weekend in the ACC, get more in a rhythm, I think they're going to be battle tested, and it's going to pay off.
Yeah, I do think we'd mentioned how good the Duke defense was in general, but you did make a good point about just kind of noting a few errors and costly errors, I think, in a few of their games. I would just pose the question, maybe it's rhetorical. If you have an answer or an opinion, by all means, but could it have been field quality? I'm sure I think something about it. Could it have been at all regarding field quality at Mary Nutter, like bad hops, things like that? Or were they more avoidable errors by the Duke infield? And, how did it really impact the game?
I think field quality definitely has something to do with it. I think the weather in that Texas A&M game, it was rainy. The wind was 20-30 miles per hour. It had a ball dropped in right field, but it wasn't dropped. It was a lot of chaos. But then Jones had 3 errors against UCLA too. So to me, I think field definitely has to play into it, but I think just that mental wear and tear that you go through playing all these great teams and the travel, and I think they might be a little tired right now, honestly. And I know it's just week 3 and you're like, you're crazy, but you really look at what they've been through and who they're playing. I think it's gonna even itself out. I don't think they got any worse from playing this weekend. I think their records wasn't great. Their overall record's 9-7 right now. I'm sure they want that to be better, but I think they're going to be better for it, learn from it, and they'll be okay. But that pitching staff, and to me, when I watched them throw, right, like they're all kind of similar. Cassidy Curd is obviously the ace. But it's just a lot of curveballs, same side of the plate to righties, same side of the plate to lefties. Yeah. Occasional rise ball in now on the hands. They just all look kind of the same. Did you see that? Did you feel that way when you saw them in person?
Yeah, I do. I think they are missing somebody that kind of, if I remember correctly, Drugmuller was like kind of down and hard, right? Like that heavier ball. Definitely think that either somebody could start incorporating that a little bit more into how they approach hitters, or maybe that's just not what they have on staff right now. Maybe a mixture. So we'll see. But yeah, I do agree.
We got to change speed, especially when you're playing this kind of schedule.
Yeah. And then shout out real quick. We mentioned the offense being really good. I like that you put this note in there too about they did score at least 5 runs in every game except for the game against OU. And the question again is how good can the hitters be for how long, right? Like having your offense score 5 runs a game is a pretty big ask to be able to keep you within ball games. And yeah, I mean, you just hope that momentum continues and those really good plans at the plate stick. They can't bear the load for a long time, and we've seen that with other teams too, very consistently.
But I like their fight against Oregon. I thought Oregon is a game they needed to win that game, and they came back in the 7th inning to tie it up, went to extras, had runners on the, I think, 2nd and 3rd, or bases loaded. I'm about to walk it off in the 7th and get doubled up at third base on a sharply hit ball. I mean, they showed a lot of fight, though. I mean, they're not just rolling over and saying, hey, we're tired. We've been through this. They're not making any excuses. They're fighting. Their offense looks good. They have the tools there, but I'm sure they're excited to play at home this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. Sleep in their own beds, right?
Yeah, right.
So Virginia Tech had a really good weekend.
Yes.
We were both fired up about this one. Just the outings they had wins against Utah State and Seton Hall, but then they had some really good big games against Georgia. I know you were excited too, just about some with Georgia because of how well they've done the last couple of weeks. Like they have been pretty dominant. They were really great at Clearwater, and just trying to figure out like what is it that they're doing well, but also like what's going on with them right now. So let's talk a little bit about what we saw with Virginia Tech.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I was out on Virginia Tech. Like I was not happy with them when they went down to Charlotte and lost to Michigan State, lost to Charlotte.
Yeah.
Like I was like, come on.
What's going on? Yeah.
We can't be doing this right now. And then going down to Georgia and taking 2 games handedly from the Bulldogs, like you mentioned, people were talking high on Georgia and how well they're playing, how well they're swinging it. And they just came out and put a whooping on them in 2 games, which was really good to see. And something interesting happened in that first game against Georgia. And I'm going to mention that Addison Fisher did not throw any games. That's a transfer from UCLA who's been their ace. She did not throw against Georgia at all. So that's kind of interesting, but the pitching staff was able to limit the Georgia bats. But the interesting thing that happened in game 1 is in the 5th inning, the score was 9-2, Virginia Tech rolling. But Tony Baldwin, the head coach at Georgia, I don't know if this was a team wake up, everybody's replaceable, but he replaced his entire starting lineup. It started first, 5th inning or 6th inning, replaced the 5th inning infield. Next inning, replaced the entire outfield, replaced the DH, replaced the catcher. I mean, emptied his bench in that game. I think that was kind of a message to his team. You know what? Virginia Tech put him in that situation and took advantage of it. And I really think that Bree Carrico, she's a sophomore, didn't play last year, so maybe she's a redshirt freshman. She went 5 innings against Georgia, only gave up 1 hit. She's currently 3-0 with a .77 ERA and 27 innings pitched. And Emma Mazzarone's the number 1, but Bree Carrico we haven't talked about at all. And she came out with a good performance. And I think that offensively, they came around. Bree Abramovich, Zoe Yeager, Jordan Lynch, all producing. One name, Chatfield. She's batting over 300, but we just haven't seen her break out like we did last year. So they still have that piece coming through.
Yeah, and Kylie Aldridge had a really good game too. Just like you said, some really big swings, timely stuff, and maybe from your unusual suspects, like in the best way. That's a sign of good depth, and that is something that Virginia Tech has done well the last couple of years. So I'm excited to see what they continue. I'm excited about their pitchers. Like I think that, you know, the graduation of Emma Limley was big and it had a lot of us questioning, like, who are they going to be? And, you know, that's the question with any program that has and graduates a really great pitcher of how are they going to step up? Who is going to step up? And I think they've done a good job.
Yeah. And seeing Bree Carrico come out there and throw those solid 5 innings was awesome. I mean, you don't have to rely on one arm with this team. And I think going against such a hard-hitting team and a great offensive team and being able to shut them down, even though Addison Fisher didn't pitch for them, they were able to pretty much silence that offense in 2 games.
Yeah.
So Virginia Tech needed that. I needed that for Virginia Tech. I'm back on board.
Okay. Back on the train. Well, staying in the state of Virginia, Virginia is off to a really good start. 12-1 on the year. They were undefeated this weekend. Wins over Maryland, Ohio State, Delaware. They obviously played some of those teams twice, Maryland, Ohio State. But what are you thinking right now about the Cavaliers?
I really like them. I really like what they're doing. Yeah. They're very mature team, a lot of seniors, a lot of juniors that are making an impact this year. I go back to that first game where they absolutely got whooped by Arkansas and then came back very next day and beat them. I think that shows a lot about what this team is. And then they took care of business this weekend. First game against Maryland, run-rolled them, and then Maryland played them really tight. They were able to pull off a 1-run game. And then Ohio State is a really good team. They were a postseason team last year, and they were able to take care of business with them. And I think they're just a better offensive team this year, too. Macy Eaton, I mean, she's just absolutely killing it right now. And I think the offense really hindered them last year, so they've improved there. But then, I mean, like Courtney Lane in the circle and Eden Bigham and Julia Kuzo, it's really interesting that Courtney Lane has 2 starts. Eden Bigham only has 1 start on the season. And to me, it's that kind of Joanna Hardin using a pitching staff really well.
Mm-hmm.
The only complete game they've thrown was against Arkansas, where Courtney Lane beat them. Besides that, they're going 2 innings, bringing in multiple pitchers, even when they're not in trouble before they get in trouble. I think Joanna Hardin knows how hard it is to go through a lineup 2 or 3 times, and she's putting her team in a good position. And with the offense they have, I think they've got all the pieces there.
Yeah, and definitely trying to sustain, even though you're still only in the first month. You see a lot of these teams and players can be tired because it's very heavy scheduling in the early part of the season. Like you mentioned earlier, just before we got on here, like, yeah, they're 5-game weekends and it's tough. Like, it's a lot. And the wear and tear happens early, but then you've got to figure out how to sustain so that you're still playing your best softball come April and May. But you mentioned a better offense than you've seen. I think it's a deeper offense, and it's taking the pressure off of people that were really successful last year. You had Jade Hilton, who was the star for this Virginia team, and now other people are stepping up, which helps when you have protection of your really talented players and other people step up. It's pressure. It's more people getting the job done and allowing for that protection so that, they may not have to pitch to one of the players, but then they're going to have to face, Macy Eaton here, and she's crushing it. And it's just that multi-level threat of, okay, if it's not this person, it's this person. And it's just such a comforting feeling from a coaching standpoint, knowing that, hey, I've got a lot of people that can come in and get a job done in a big situation.
I think you're exactly right on the depth. That's a great point. I think from a coaching standpoint for sure, but I also think about it as a player or for a team. You have your best player. If they don't get the job done, what that kind of does for the rest of the team, oh man, or that one player, if they don't get out, then they're really down on themselves because they're like, hey, I'm the best opportunity to do this. Now it's like Jade Hilton gets out and she's like, oh, well,
So
fine,
what?
I'll get them next time. It definitely changes that mindset. But yeah, Virginia's rolling. I think I'm really excited to go out there for the ACC tournament. I know Joanna Hardin's excited. I know she's going to put on a first-class event.
Yeah.
She's going to make sure the flow's going well. She's going to make sure everything is top notch. So that's going to be awesome. And I think it's great because that senior class for Virginia, they're all from Virginia. And I think that's kind of special. So they get to host the ACC tournament there. I thought it was kind of cool. She did an interview that they weren't even supposed to host this year. Clemson was supposed to host this year. And Virginia is supposed to host next year, but they had to switch because of graduation. So this awesome senior class that's been there and really developed and leveled up each season is going to get to host the ACC tournament, which I think is really cool.
That's cool. Well, I'm not much of a planner, and you know that, but do I need to have a coat to be able to be in Virginia in May?
I don't think it's going to be like Boston College.
Okay.
I think you're a little scared from what happened to us last year in Boston.
Yeah.
But
PTSD.
You never know, but it's not going to be like it was last year for sure.
Good.
Last thing on Virginia, she made a really cool point in that interview too, that each year they actually bring in a consultant to help them with their scheduling, whereas last year's goal was to make it to a regional. So they want to make their schedule, so their RPI, strength of schedules, where the selection committee looks at them like, yeah, you deserve a regional. And she said this year their schedule was to host a regional. So they are looking to level up, and they've done it with their scheduling. We saw them with the game against Arkansas, bringing in Ohio State. They're doing a good job there. So they want to level up. And we talk about it every year. They make the postseason. They've done something bigger each year. And this year that they want to host a regional, and they're not shy about talking about their goals, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, love it. Let's talk about the Tigers. Clemson has been giving Britt and I both heart palpitations with the roller coaster that they're taking us on, but they had a pretty good weekend. A couple of wins against Baylor. They played Coastal Carolina, Lipscomb. They did lose to Charlotte. So what do you think about Clemson and where they're at?
I tell you, if we were having this conversation on Thursday after they lost to Charlotte, I was not happy because when I watched that game, they just looked lost. They just made mistakes, not even mistakes that you'll see in the scorebook or the error column. They just didn't know, almost like they didn't know where to go with the ball, who to look to, lack of communication, and then the physical errors that allowed Charlotte to have that big inning. And it was tough to watch a Clemson team that is so well coached, but we had the same conversation last year when they started 3-6. Um, I wasn't ready to abandon ship with Clemson yet, but I was towing the edge. I was getting really close after that loss. And then they came out this weekend and they didn't give up a run to any teams. I think it was really good for them to come out and answer that way. They had 2 shutouts against Baylor, hadn't been shut out since their first game of the season. Abby Dunning and Sierra Manis leading the way, but there is concern with Abby Dunning. She left the game with a lower leg injury, and she missed all of last season with the lower leg injury. So I really hope that that is not a long issue. I'll actually be out there this weekend in Clemson, so I'll get to watch them, hopefully chat with a couple of them and get my eye on them and be able to see. But Lexi Hames, kind of showed up as another arm besides Sierra Manis and Abby Dunning. And prior to the weekend, she'd only thrown 3 1/3 innings, but she had a complete game shutout, has a sub-1 ERA, 13 Ks in 9 innings. So I think she's going to be an arm that they're going to rely on, especially if there's an injury with Dunning. But the only thing with her, I think control may be an issue. She throws hard, but she has the 9 walks in 9 innings too. But they're going to have to pitch by committee, I think.
Yeah. We'll see. The depth, I think, is the most concerning piece right now for Clemson on both sides, really. Like the offense, the pitching staff, we'll see kind of how they respond. Hopefully they get that like sort of lost look away. And we get that back of the confidence out on the field and how they're able to navigate those situations. There is a lot of, I could say youth, but like just newness on this team as well, right? Like you graduated a really good class last year, and a lot of the first couple of weeks is still figuring it out. So we'll see how Clemson responds. They've got the coaching, they've got the knowledge, they've got the resources. It's just how do we start implementing it in game and pressure situations? So did like to see Julia Noller getting her swing back. She was a big contributor last year to the offense, has had a bit of a slower start this year, and a couple of, extra base hits, RBIs, things like that, that consistency really coming back.
Yeah.
So.
Marion Collins went off this weekend too. Still waiting for Cintron to kind of show up and make an impact. And I just had a flashback of watching them play Texas last year in that super regional, and the pure energy they brought. And you mentioned, their graduating class and Maddie Moore. I mean, she was the heartbeat. She was that person for them. And I think they need to find who that person is. And it doesn't have to look like it did when Maddie Moore did it, but they have to find some leadership there on the field. And I'm excited to see him play. It'll be fun this weekend.
Agree. Let's talk about the Noles. So in Tallahassee, they hosted several teams, another tournament. And they were 4-2 on the weekend. They played Louisiana Lafayette. They played Elon. They played Dartmouth. They lost twice to Alabama. They won all the other games. Like they almost run-ruled every other game as far as I can remember. Interesting, right?
Yeah. I think everybody had Florida State, Alabama circled because I think Alabama's exceeding expectations for this season. I don't think a lot of people had a lot of high hopes for them to do extremely well, and they're undefeated right now, and Florida State playing so well. So that was a marquee matchup, and Alabama took advantage of mistakes. Any ball that was left over the plate, they hit it, and they hit it a long way. So props to them for doing that. That's a sign of a really good team. I don't think Florida State played bad by any means. And the score, you look at the score, you're like, well, they got beat by a lot. But I think it was just a couple mistakes they made in the circle. I still think overall that Jazzy looked good. I think Bella, the freshman, looked good. I think offensively, it's going to get harder because they're so young, and early in the season, there's no film on these freshmen. The 4 freshmen that are in the lineup, nobody knew who they were, if they had holes in their swings, how to attack them. But the more and more film and tape that is out on this team, I think the harder it's going to be for these young people to have the success they had first 2 weeks of the season. So I'm going to definitely keep my eye on that and see how that impacts this team, because they are relying on freshmen a lot in this lineup. And we know how hard it is to adjust after you've been in the game in college for 3 or 4 years, but you're a freshman this year, and all the technology, people are going to be able to find your weakness.
Agree. I do want to see, Ashton Danley she's a 2-way player at Florida State. Not as, I say dominant. I don't know that she's ever dominant. She was really effective, right? Because she's not that overpowering a pitcher, but she is that pitcher that can come in tight situations, keep balls down below the knees, roll ground balls, defense works behind her. Off to a slower start. People have started to figure out her drop ball and changeup. That's predominantly what she throws. And, she's averaging almost a hit an inning. So she's got 14 innings and 12 hits given up so far. And I think that just trying to get whatever it is, whether it is a little bit tighter rotation, like, better spotting. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not a pitching coach, don't claim to be, but just trying to rein back in whatever it is that has made her so good in the past. Definitely want to see her keep attacking that. And then you look at, though, Bella Dimitrievich and her numbers. And for a freshman, this is really good. She is averaging almost the same 23 innings and 20 hits. So almost a hit an inning, but she's a freshman. She hasn't learned the strike zone yet. She hasn't she has, but, really trying to use it to her advantage and leverage pitches like that in the zone or around the zone against some of these really good hitting teams that she's also played. Like, this has been a tough schedule, and trying to see how she continues to evolve as a pitcher, I think, will be huge because she will be a big contributor to this staff. I definitely see her getting a lot more innings. And so I'm excited to see how she responds to this and continues to evolve. And then I'm also excited to see how she's able to quickly transition pitch to pitch, because that's another thing. If I'm facing All-Americans, I can't throw them sometimes the same pitch back to back often, or I can't throw it, 3 times in an at bat. And the transitions have to be really fast at this level. And I think that's where some of these youngsters in general, it takes time. So I'm excited.
I think she's going to be one hell of a pitcher. Really good as a freshman and going against the schedule. Some good thing, Kennedy Harp, we saw her back, had some at-bats early in the weekend, and then was out there on Sunday. Torres went out with an injury. She's in concussion protocol. And there are so many times in the games against Alabama where things would happen and they get some runners on and it'd be a big situation, top of the lineup. You're like, yeah, Issa Torres. No, she's out. And it was a freshman, Marin Heller, who's a heck of a ball player. But in that kind of situation against a top 10 team where you need that big hit, it's a lot to ask when, that could have been Issa Torres, where she just thrives in those moments. So injury, definitely not an excuse, but definitely something to note, to take into consideration with the 2 drop games to Alabama.
Yeah, you have to. She's hitting 500, Torres. Like, she's that girl. So,
yeah. Well, they'll turn it around. There's a lot of learning, a lot of development still left to do with Florida State.
Yeah.
They were ranked, I saw, in the Softball American poll, not in the D1 poll. I haven't seen the other ones. And some people are like, they haven't played anybody. And I'm one of those people. I know they haven't played anybody, but when you're outscoring your opponents 151-16 and you haven't lost, and I think there's only 5 undefeated teams left in the entire nation that haven't lost, I think they deserve a little bit of credit. They're 14-0 this weekend. And I'm going to read the names of who they played. They played Radford, App State, Princeton, Rider, and North Carolina Central 2 times. They had 50 runs, 13 home runs, 22 extra base hits. And yeah, that's how you should play against teams that you're supposed to beat, right? So they're playing like that. They did have to go to extras with App, who I think is probably the best team they've played this season, but they were able to walk it off with a big, of course, home run by Emily Leggett. But, I'm disappointed that they're not playing better competition because we don't really know, but they're taking care of business, right?
Yeah. They're crushing it. Like you said, it's one thing, the level of competition is what it is, but they still have to handle their business. They still have to hit. They still have to do all the things. And they're doing that. So I don't think they deserve much criticism. I mean, especially the players, like, you can't control who you play. It is what it is. Now I'm excited as they do get into conference soon and play better competition. I'm excited to see how they respond, because regardless of the opponents, the numbers they are putting up are insane. You've got, and we'll get into her more, but Emily Leggett is hitting over 600. Like that, what? Like, mind-blowing, right? And then you've got Sanaa Thompson over 500. You've got 3 people over 500. You've got 2 hitting in the 4s. My point is, like, that's hard to do regardless at this level. Like, we all know we would play a random mid-major and a midweek, and next thing you know, you'd find yourself like 0 for 3 because it's harder to hit sometimes, like not as consistent, dominant pitching when you have to be patient, when you have to be selective, the pitch discipline, like all the things, it's sometimes harder. So what they were doing is great.
I thought you made a really good point of what's going to happen when they get into conference and play better competition, because right now you watch them, they're exciting, they're on this high. I mean, they are high. And why wouldn't you be, right? But how are they going to handle it when those numbers start to come down to reality? How are they going to handle some kind of, defeat? Because they're not going to go undefeated, right? Nobody goes undefeated. Maybe they do this year, but is it going to turn into a roller coaster? Are we only going to act this way when we're winning and hitting 50 home runs in a weekend? Or how are we going to be in a 1-0 ball game? Like, how are they going to react to that kind of stuff? And that's why pre-conference games against great competition is really good for your team. So you can learn how to deal with that, how you can stay consistent, because I think they may be too high right now.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of emotion in the circle too, especially on like pitches off the plate, but close, called a ball, a lot of animation. Be cocky, that's fine, but we've got to find that middle ground. And I hope that when they do have some challenges, that they don't just drop off and then have to build back up. I want to find that consistency.
Yeah, they are top 5 in the country, though, and team batting average hitting over 440. They're number 4, at least, well, they were. They might even be higher now because there was 33 home runs when the stats were taken from an NCAA perspective. They've got 35 on the year, and they're top 5 in runs, over 140 runs. It's impressive what they're doing nonetheless.
So glad to see them in a couple polls. Okay, so those are our top teams. We got some shout-outs to give.
Yeah.
Over at Louisville, who I think Holly April got a contract extension, and I think people look at Louisville and not see a ton of success there recently, but they're playing really good ball right now. Alyssa Zabala is crushing it, as she has in the past, and I think a contract extension is definitely warranted for Holly April, because think about the players that she's brought in that have left. Shar Lorenz right now down at LSU, and Corby Otis went to Florida, but she's a great recruiter.
Yeah.
I think it's a Holly April problem at Louisville. I think it's a Louisville problem in what they invest into the school, into their women's programs, and in the softball, to be honest with you.
I completely agree with that. I mean, you said it best, so I'm just going to go mic drop and let you roll with it, because, you're spot on there. If coach can get them there, it's a deeper problem, I think.
Absolutely. Steve Singleton, congratulations on your first ejection as a head coach. I'm not sure if you saw it, but it was a hit by pitch where they called the girl back. One of the Cal players looked like she leaned into it a bit, but he didn't like it. So fired
He
up.
fought for it.
We saw that at Texas too under Mike White. So congrats on that. And then a couple win milestones. Just Alistair, her 300th win at Stanford. Thought this was a really cool note. It was her 620th total win at Stanford as a head coach, player, assistant coach. So she is definitely leaving her mark there. And then Joanna Harden, her 300th win as a head coach. So congratulations, all coaches.
And then got to give a little shout out to Georgia Tech. One of the things they've done well the last few years is swing it, and they're still swinging it. They're top 5 in the country with hits right now. So just swinging the big bats. Want to see them continue to just go out there, fight, compete. Kick, scratch, claw, we always joke, but that's what you got to do to win ball games. And I'm excited to see how they fare the next couple of weeks.
We'll actually get to see them play tomorrow.
Amazing.
Yeah, we're going to take a little road trip before we head up to Clemson.
Very cool.
State plays there tomorrow. It was supposed to be on ACC Network, but it got pulled. I'll tell you more about that when we're off here, but you can still watch it on the app. So yeah, watch Georgia Tech, Mississippi State tomorrow.
Love it. I'll definitely be watching. So standout performances, a couple on the week. Britt, you want to do yours first?
Yeah, I'm going with Emily Leggett from UNC. Just based on a numbers thing, I'm sure you can make arguments for other players that played better competition, had good outings, but she went 11 for 18, hitting 600, 5 home runs, including a walk-off, 14 RBIs, and scored 9 runs. I mean, I think if a team put that together, that would be an outstanding performance, but that was just one player over the course of the weekends. Emily Leggett, transferred from Virginia Tech, now at Tar Heel. Great job.
Love it. I'm going to go with my girl, Deanna Jennings at Duke. I feel like I've just been a fan for a while, but definitely this season, she is insane to watch, swinging it really well. And she's a lot of fun in the outfield, too, covers so much ground. Jennings was 14 for 22 on the weekend at Mary Nutter and had great competition. And that's over 600. She was 5 for 5 in the game against Oregon. That was the first 5-hit game of her career.
Do you ever have a 5-hit game?
Girl, I don't remember. I don't know.
I know I didn't. There's no way.
I was like, I'm sure I didn't either, but I don't know. So
That's incredible.
Really good stuff. Yeah. And then she's hitting over 550 on this season too. So like just insane what she's doing. Yeah. So tough. And she's leading the country now in hits. She just collected I think it's her 250th hit that I saw and for her career. Like just so good. I'm a big fan. So
awesome job.
Yep.
Good job. So you want to go into BS or no BS with AP?
Let's do it.
All right. Yeah. So some things that I heard around the softball world this past week. I'm going to ask Alex, is it BS or no BS? Because she knows all and has a great BS detector. Okay. First one, Alex, BS or no BS? 56 games is too many games in a season.
I'm going to say no BS. I think it's a good amount. Like I do think February is hard. You have to stack a lot of games in to get that number with the time frame of season. And I think that prior to even obviously our podcast right now, but we had a brief conversation earlier. And I think the length of the season could be a little longer. You compare it to baseball. Baseball has the longer time to be able to get those same amount of games in. And I think you'd mentioned that their season's like two weeks longer, technically. Comparable in games, but I think that could be a big difference maker. We've seen glimpses of change at the World Series and the length of time allowed to compete there. But I don't know, maybe we have that conversation about regular season too.
So you want to keep the 56 games, but
I think so.
Let's have a longer time to play them.
Yep.
I think that's a good point. I mean, the more that we can see softball as a fan, right? I want to see all the games, but we've got to take into consideration student athlete recovery and being able to put the best product on the field. If we're going to play 56 games, we need to make sure that these teams are being able to play the best ball. Okay. Number 2, Alex, BS or no BS? Teams cannot recover from a slow start through the month of February. BS or no BS?
BS. I think the February time is just about figuring it out, information collection, and getting that stuff kind of hammered out through the next couple of weeks. So they can absolutely recover. I'm saying BS.
Yeah, we saw that with the Clemson last year, 3-6 start, made it super regionals, almost to the World Series. And finally, the first week of February is the perfect time to start the softball season. BS or no BS?
I'm going to say no BS. I think that the Northern teams struggle to get home games in because of the time frame and it's cold, but hit the road, get the warm weather, and then if we could prolong the season a little bit, that would be nice so that they can tack on those, home games at the end when it's nice and warm where they are. So I'm going to say no BS, but I am going to say we should have the longer season and that would help them out. So
I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Last thing. What are we most excited to watch this week? Already mentioned it. Georgia Tech versus Mississippi State tomorrow. Also have the big Clemson Georgia matchup tomorrow. And then Northwestern at Duke Thursday. And then the BU Duke rematch this weekend coming down to the Duke tournament, which will be fun. And we start conference this weekend. 3 conference series, Stanford at Louisville, BC at UNC, Georgia Tech at Notre Dame.
Yeah. I'm excited for the Virginia Tech Auburn game. I'm excited for all the games. Love watching softball, but I'm also excited to see Georgia Tech at Notre Dame. I got to watch Notre Dame this past weekend. They had a tough weekend in Florida. So I'm excited to see how they bounce back because they were like glimpses of so much potential, right? But actual execution has to happen. And then Georgia Tech, knowing just how well they're swinging the bats, I'm excited to see how that one plays out.